リンクスタート。
Sword Art Online Mother's Rosario, or some might also call it Sword Art Online the one about Asuna, because after 5 frickin' novels, Reki Kawahara actually decided it was time to give his main heroine some time in the spotlight, and made her the main character of this volume. Well, better late than never, I suppose. So we are back in Halo, where for possibly the first time ever, there are no maniacs who are trying to murder people using this entertainment product anymore. Here, Asuna has just met up with a new super strong player called Kunoyuki and the Guild the Sleeping Knights, and they decide to team up. And so the party sets off for new adventures in the land of SAO, with the goal of taking out the next level boss, making a name for themselves in the game and... taking out the next level boss, making a name for themselves in the game and... that's basically it. I'm sorry, what? That's it. That's the plotline in this novel. That's it. Great. Just... great. This is not going to be a very good novel. I can already tell. So the first thing I noticed was that Sinon was nowhere to be found, which pissed me off since she was my favorite character in SAO. And it was not just Sinon who got the boot. Pretty much everything that happened in the Phantom Bullet got ignored altogether. In fact, for a while I was even confused as to if Mother Rosario was somehow taking place before GD on the timeline. Eventually I found one single line that confirmed that the Phantom Bullet did in fact happen and did not take place in some alternate universe without anybody telling us. On the bright side, it means that you can in fact just skip the Phantom Bullet altogether and jump straight to Mother Rosario if you want to. The second thing I noticed was that there's probably too many characters in this novel. In addition to Yuki and Asuna, there were another 4 members in the Sleeping Knights Guild. The problem was though that, since this novel is so short, it's only about 300 pages, it was impossible to give the novel enough time to properly characterize them all. So with the exception of Yuki, I thought that all the members in the Sleeping Knights Guild were little more than faceless background characters. In fact, I could not even remember their names when I was writing this review. And as for Yuki as a character, well, pick your favorite determined, happy, over-eccentric anime character, make her an extremely powerful VR MMO player, and you should end up with something fairly similar to Yuki. She's not a bad character, just not a particularly good one either. Maybe the label, in my professional opinion, kinda forgettable would be appropriate. But once again, the biggest problem is by far the plot itself. Reki Kawahara, are you completely retarded? After 4 novels you had finally figured out how to make Sword Art Online work, and then you immediately go back to doing whatever Fairy Dance was supposed to be. I mean, the characters are literally just playing a video game, and they're also taking it way too seriously, I might add. How am I supposed to care about this? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. The obvious answer is that I can't. Granted, it could still have become a decent novel if the page-to-page reading was still enjoyable. I remember Clanner, for example, was able to make up for a basically eventless plotline with a ton of clever writing and witty dialogue. I did not feel that Mother Rosario had any card like that though, as the majority of time was spent in not particularly engaging conversations about how to defeat the boss, and so we're left with a story that's treated like it's a matter of life and death, even though it ultimately should not matter. Okay, so... Reki Kawahara. Insert obvious question here, so to speak.
That was the plot twist leading into the second half of the novel.
Didn't look like it.
Well, it was. It doesn't matter what it looked like, it was.
No. No, it wasn't. That was just Pikachu driving a random tank with the word plot twist edited onto it. That has literally nothing to do with what happened in the book, so I cannot see why—
If I tell you it was the plot twist leading into the second half of the novel, then it was the plot twist leading into the second half of the novel. Now get back to the review, Mr. Random Internet Kid with a microphone number 476,361.
Okay, calm down. Okay, I'll get back to the review now. Yeah, so somewhere around the halfway point, the novel made a complete 180 in both tone and story. I cannot say too much about it without going into spoiler territory, but it went from this light-hearted, let's play around in the VR world just for funsies, to what I would actually call a serious exploration of how real life could be affected if VR technology was ever invented. It wants to be a much more gripping and emotional story than anything before in the SOA series. And when I say emotional, by the way, I mean emotional in a way which makes me picture Kawahara running back and forth, yelling,
I want to be Key! I can tell tear-jerking stories too!
But the real question is, of course, is it good? At the time of writing this particular paragraph, I've been trying to answer that question myself for like literally 3 weeks. And the most honest answer I can give you is that I'm not sure. The reason being is that I cannot see any clear faults with how it was handled. I really can't. But at the same time, I did not care while reading it. Rosario was begging me to feel for it, but I think I would have felt more emotionally impacted if I had been watching paint dry. You know what I think a great part of the problem might be? No music. Seriously, pick any scene out of any anime, movie or video game that you found to be extremely impactful, put the music on mute and suddenly it won't be as impactful anymore. I'm not sure if normal books as a medium is even capable of delivering Clannad-esque experiences, due to this drawback. I'm actually completely convinced that Rosario would have been much better as either a visual novel or an anime. But if we overlook all of that and judge this novel completely on its own merits, is Rosario good enough for a recommendation? Well, since it wants to be such an emotional story, I think the enjoyment of this novel can be a very subjective thing. If you're a person who can be impacted by normal books, you might like this novel. And considering that this is SOA, I actually have to applaud the novel for being the first in the series to have no freaking fan service. Still, I cannot give a thumbs up to something that I myself did not enjoy, and there's the whole slow, boring first half of the novel to deal with. Yeah, I understand it was necessary to spend time characterizing Yuki and making sure that the reader would actually care about her, but I won't buy that as an excuse. The story needs to be engaging all the time. You cannot expect the reader to sit through dozens and dozens of pages which are just setting up the good parts. A good novel is able to fill in the reader on everything that he or she needs to know, while still remaining fun to read. And this is where I felt that Rosario messed up. For all of these reasons, and the fact that we will most likely see an anime adaptation of this novel eventually, which I think will be superior to its source material, I give this novel a thumbs down. Finally, there's one last thing I want to throw out. We all want virtual realities in order to fly, shoot energy beams out of our hands, and yeah, the obvious one. We don't really need VR technology for that, as lucid dreaming already lets us do all of that stuff. For free, I might add.